heaven. Get alone and let God apply the holy coals of heaven's altar to your heart today. He loves you. He wants to do this for you. This is Doug Small with Project Pray for OneCry.com.
Greetings, KELP listeners. My name is Terry Gray, and I have the joy and privilege of serving as the pastor of Calvary Chapel Sun City, located on the west side of El Paso. I also have the joy of connecting with the radio audience in the borderland through the Summons broadcast heard each weekday at 5 p.m. right here on this station. On Summons, we study the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, precept by precept. Please join us each weekday at 5 p.m. for Summons right here on KELP.
Visit desertvoice.media to learn more.
915 TALK.
The world is looking at El Paso.
What will we say to the world? From the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host.
Oh, it's episode 277 of the 915 Talk Show. Good afternoon, beautiful. Oh, okay. All right. Good afternoon, beautiful citizens of the borderland. This is 915 Talk, and I am your host, Andy Frecka. Today is a beautiful April 28th, year of our Lord 2026. We're live from the heart of the world's largest borderplex. We're here at the KELP studio in El Paso, and today we have the distinct privilege of having Kenny on the board. Kenny on the board, how you doing this afternoon?
I didn't know I was the distinct privilege.
Yes, always,
Wow,
always.
I like these promotions.
How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask. I must confess, my vocabulary is painfully poverty-stricken. I am unable to describe the wonder and joy that I experience each and every weekday afternoon as we have embarked upon this educational journey, as we learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory.
You want a Gen Z term for that?
Okay.
Bussin'.
Oh, we're bussin'.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Wesley, the intern, is nodding his head. He's Gen Z.
It was his suggestion today. I had a different one, but he said no, use bussin'.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I guess he knows the lingo. What's going on these days? So we continue to learn, Kenny, on the board.
Always.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about legal stuff.
Am I in trouble?
No. Well, we're talking about the kind of problems you have if, like, let's say you own a business, and then, well, someday we're all going to die, and then what happens to your business?
Okay.
Or we might even talk about, like, what happens to your stuff. Like,
You mean you can't take it with you?
no, you can't. You have to leave it for someone else. This is Christian radio. You should know that, Kenny, on the board.
No, I know
you
that.
can't take it with you.
Now it's time for people to start.
Do you have
kissing up.
do you have a prized possession that you're looking to give to someone else when you
A prized possession?
Yeah, when you go on to glory.
The only prized possession I have will probably be dead before I die.
Oh,
My dog.
oh, that's very poignant. Is there someone you would trust with Teddy?
Yeah, I trust my parents with
Oh,
him.
your parents. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Do you have that in writing?
I really don't think that needs to be in writing, but I think I might just go home and put that in writing after today's talk.
Yeah, so that's right. So today we have a very special guest with us. Do you know why he's special?
He is the unique expression of an endlessly creative God, and obviously he must be a lawyer as well.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm
that's
not
true.
talking bad about him.
That's true. Yeah, you got to be careful. Also, I'm going to give our little disclaimer, which he's allowed to adjust after we begin because he probably knows how to do it better than I do. But nothing in this broadcast is in any way to be construed as legal advice. It is not to replace the help you get from someone you'd hire who would understand the specifics of your situation. So we're just two guys talking, but we are going to talk about some of the troubles that come along when you when you head on to glory. I hope we're all heading on to glory, and what happens to your stuff, your business, and so on and so forth. So also Kenny on the board.
Yes, sir.
We're going to allow Wesley, the intern, to run the board today.
Oh,
Yeah,
this should be exciting.
but you're going to stand right next to him.
Okay.
But to make things more exciting, we're opening up the phone lines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you figure it out. That's your job. 915
Great.
915-779-0016. Looking forward to having this conversation. So without further ado, let's give a very warm Borderland welcome to the one and the only Mr. Jacob Barde. Jacob, welcome to 915 Talk.
Thanks, Andy. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, some people just immediately agree to come on the program, and some are a little bit hard to get, but we finally got you on, so I'm excited.
I am the latter group.
So let's jump right into it. What are some of the mistakes that people make for planning for the future of their business? Possibly when they pass away, unfortunately, or become unable to lead that business.
The biggest mistake is not planning. I mean, you see a lot of great estate plans that contemplate exactly who gets what, but what's often missed is who's going to manage my business after I go or after I become incapacitated.
Okay, so I think part of that is just people always expect the best, that they're going to live forever.
Something like that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it's I think probably there are a lot of people who pass before they expected. It's not just someone who's 80 years old, 90, 100 who passed away. It's unexpectedly. So what does that situation look like for a business when there's not that plan in place?
Sure. Well, even if there is a plan in place for what happens to what you own, if there isn't a plan for who manages what you own, whoever takes over ownership is what they call in Texas an assignee. So that individual or that company or that group has the right to receive profit distributions. They don't have the right necessarily to vote or to manage the business itself, to make draws on the bank account, to sign contracts on behalf of the company, et cetera.
Oh, okay. All right. So I want to make sure I understand what you just said, because that was pretty significant. Let's say I have a business, I pass. In my will, I'm saying this business goes to a person, whoever that person is. That person can draw some dividends, for example, but they can't actually vote?
Right. Unless you've contemplated that in your business plan or your organizational documents.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, that's probably one of the most basic oversights. I had no idea.
And it's really common in multi-generational businesses where mom and dad own the business and maybe one of the sons or daughters is running the business. And when they had to, they could just take a check or a contract to be signed by mom or dad as needed. And then when they can't do that anymore, they've been running the business for years, but they don't technically have the power on paper to continue to operate it.
Okay, so grandpa is actually still the owner. He's signing off on the most important things, but it might have been 20 years and everyone forgot to take care of that very important.
Right, and Grandpa might have a fantastically buttoned up estate plan that did not contemplate his business.
Oh, wow. Okay, so talk about, I guess, the difference between estate planning and succession planning in a business. It sounds like you're talking about two different things.
Sure. So a typical estate plan is a will-based estate plan. So you'd have a will that talks about who's going to be your executor, who's going to get your stuff. You might have some incapacity planning documents for who can make medical decisions for you and sign for your bank account. None of that governs who acts on behalf of the LLC that you own or the partnership or whatever it may be. And so that would be handled usually in the organizational documents. Like you'd have a partnership agreement or a company agreement that talks about what happens if and when I die or become incapacitated.
Okay, so again, that's that partnership agreement is separate from a will.
Right.
But it's an important part of the plan. And a lot of people don't have that in place.
Right. I mean, most family businesses are single owner businesses. So they thought, well, I don't really need a buttoned up partnership agreement. I just need to form it and go off and do my thing. But when you pass and that document doesn't exist or it doesn't contemplate what happens next, that's where you have problems.
Okay. So this is more like, I'm going to ask a question that probably falls along the lines of family psychology. But if someone's listening and they're like, that's 100% my situation. Grandpa owns the business. I'm running it. Do you have any advice based on your experience on just how to broach the subject and kind of get that conversation going?
Yeah, I mean, at first it's a family conversation before you call a lawyer or anybody else. In many cases, only one or two kids is going to take over the business, and there's others that aren't. And so if you're going to hand over ownership and management of the business to just some of your heirs, what are the other folks going to get? So I think having that family conversation of, you might have a situation when you pass where some want to keep the business going and others want to shut it down and liquidate. And so you need to talk about what you want to happen with your family.
All right. So what you're saying is you might want one of your sons or daughters to run the business, and you want the others to have a financial benefit, but not actually have a say in the business.
Right.
Okay. So the family needs to sit around and have these hard conversations.
They should.
Okay. And if they don't, then they call you after the fact.
Sure, sometimes.
Right. and I guess it's your job to pick up the pieces. What does that look like? Are we what's a timeline on fixing these situations? How complicated is it? Paint a picture of what that can look like.
Sure. So I'm thinking about a client I had years ago who owned a small roofing business. They had 3 kids. 2 of the kids went off to college, were raising their own families. The third was up and coming, running the business. They started having a conversation because Dad had a stroke, and he couldn't sign documents and make decisions, and they were scrambling to pay their contractors and to figure out what they were going to do next. Fortunately, everybody agreed. So we just all sat down, got on a Zoom call with the folks that were out of town, and just said, hey, what do you want to do?
Right.
The one who was going to stay with the business, obviously, that was his job, his livelihood. He wanted to keep running the business. The 2 sisters, they just wanted to get what was coming to them, down the road, and they wanted to make sure that Dad was taken care of. So in that case, we just had that conversation. Well, one sister's going to manage Dad's medical affairs. The other's going to manage the finances, personal finances, and son's going to continue to operate the business. Fortunately, Dad came to. We were able to get powers of attorney signed and documents that allowed those folks to make those decisions. We amended the company agreement, and we went off, and that was fine. The other side of that,
so that's a rosy picture.
That's right.
Really,
that's where I want to be. Yeah.
You're giving one end of the spectrum that seems very good, and really what happened was that they had to have kind of a catastrophic situation. Dad had a stroke to force the conversation, and probably what goes without saying is don't wait for Dad to have a stroke.
Right, that's right. And the other side of that is, and I fortunately haven't been a part of it because I'm not a litigator, but I've been adjacent to those situations where, the family, one half of the family is like, sell everything, let's cash out now. The other half is like, no way. They haven't done the planning, so it's up to a judge ultimately. And meanwhile, subs don't get paid, people start filing lawsuits, and by the time they clean it up, the business is in bankruptcy. Yeah. And it's too late.
Okay. And what would have happened in that situation with that roofing company if, again, we're talking about difficult situations, and I don't want to come across as being flippant, but it's facts of life. What if Dad hadn't had a stroke, but he'd passed? Then what does that look like if there's not that agreement in place?
At its worst, it could mean probate and litigation. At best, you just kind of start a new company and quietly move all of the assets and business and everything to a new LLC if you can.
Right.
Hopefully there isn't major financing in place, things like that.
Okay. So I would guess some people would come in and you're like, you know what? Just don't worry about it. Start a new business.
Yeah, sometimes.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely.
But if you said worst case scenario is probate and litigation, what are we talking? Years, months?
It could be. And, in many cases, the attorneys that are involved in that are appointed by the court. So they're not necessarily somebody with a family relationship who's been talking to folks and know what needs to be done and what the family wants. If you have an institutional lender, for example, that's made a big loan on the assets of the company and their guarantor just died, they want replacement guarantees now. They want the money to keep flowing. They want the value of their collateral to remain what it was or better. And if they don't get those things, then they're going to have a receiver appointed by the court to take over the business, in some cases liquidate it for cheap.
Right.
It can be catastrophically bad.
Yeah, and in the case of, I guess, a mom and pop roofing company,
not likely.
That's not going to happen. Probably they personally own the vehicles. It's a job-by-job basis.
Right.
Not a big deal, but in a bigger business, you're really outlining a catastrophic situation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. All
right. So that's business succession. And again, I think it's so important what you said at the beginning of this conversation. I didn't know that. I've had attorneys help me with different things, and I'm like, oh, I think I have that, but I didn't realize what the difference was.
Sure.
And so you have a will. The will does not provide really for the future governance of the business. That's a partnership agreement.
Typically, right.
Okay.
That's right.
And then just in a general sense, do you have thoughts on business structures that are easier when you get to that succession planning, simpler, or maybe people make it overcomplicated? What are you seeing?
Sure. I mean, in almost every case, an LLC is the easiest format for a business for all kinds of reasons, including succession planning. When you have corporations or partnerships, you have stock certificates to think about. You have, bylaws. The adoption and amendment of bylaws requires board meetings.
Yeah.
With an LLC, I mean, in many cases, you can kind of do the same thing across the board, but LLCs were meant to be more simple. They give you the same liability shield you'd get otherwise, but the documentation is easy. What makes things complicated is having partners, other people that are not in the family that are involved in the business that have to agree to all of this. So best case scenario when you form the company is when you do this.
Yeah. Have those difficult conversations from the get-go.
Right, and it can be simple as, people have heard of a buy-sell agreement, for example. There's different kinds of agreements that are equitable, that work well, that you can adopt from the very beginning with partners.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So this is a huge discussion. Let's move to the part of estate planning. I know that's something you're also involved in. Again, if we're with Jacob Barde, attorney here in El Paso, I believe it's important for our audience to hear these discussions. They can be awkward, they can be difficult, but talk about saving folks from a ton of heartache, both personally for their family, all of that. Estate planning is a big part of that. Also, the phone lines are open, 915-779-0016. So let's get into the estate planning part of things. I think in general, again, I'm repeating myself, but families don't want to have these conversations.
They don't. But I will say this, it feels good to have it all done. The conversation itself and initiating it's terrible. It's so painful for most people. But once you're done, it really is something that's worth doing.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good point. And what are some of the mistakes you're seeing with estate planning?
For me, I think it's two things. One is I see a lot of form-based planning. So, attorneys and individuals can buy forms, and that works in most cases.
You're talking about like online boilerplate?
Yeah, sure, like a form will or a form power of attorney. Nothing wrong with using forms, but it kind of keeps you mentally inside that box. And I think in a lot of cases, it's worth getting outside the box. We talked about having a pet, for example. Most of the form-based wills that I've seen don't contemplate what happens to your dog when you pass or become incapacitated. And it's true that you don't necessarily have to paper that. I mean, if there isn't a fight about it, and mom and dad come and pick up your dog, no one's going to have a fight about that.
Right.
But if your sister and your neighbor both think the dog belongs to them when you pass, it's easy to deal with if it's put in writing.
Right.
And it might not be if it's not, including guardianship, for example.
Right. Okay. So you're saying a lot of these online forms, which are very enticing, particularly because of their price tag,
right.
Don't contemplate everything in a situation.
Right. It's hard. It requires custom drafting to get complicated.
Right. Because you're going through the form and you feel like you're covered and you're not getting all the questions asked.
Right. If you're married and you've got two kids and they're both adults and everything's being split 50-50, use a form. But if you want your sister to be in charge of this question and your best friend to be in charge of that question and grandma gets the dog, the more complication you get, the more you need to have custom drafting.
Okay. And I think we've had this conversation on this program multiple times before. First of all, it requires some humility to reach out to someone and say, I need some help. Whether it be what we're talking about here, we have financial planners on regularly on this program. We have mental health professionals come on talking about all these things. It's reach out to someone else who knows what they're talking about, who's a professional,
sure.
and have the humility to ask for help. So that goes for estate planning. It's succession planning.
Succession.
Yeah, thank you for business. All of these things. Let's have these difficult conversations because we are Christian radio here, and that means that we do have a certain set of values, one of them being that we're to steward what God gives us,
right.
and we're to manage those things well. And so doing all these things we're talking about is part of managing those things for the glory of God. So if you're just joining us with Jacob Barde, he's an attorney here in El Paso. We've been talking about succession planning for business, estate planning. We have a lot more to talk about in this conversation, but first we're going to take a break. Before we go into the break, this is your daily reminder that 915 Talk is listener supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. The website is desertvoice.media. You can go there and click on that 915 Talk link and listen to this or any previous 915 Talk conversation. It truly is the highlight of my day to have these conversations, to be on this educational journey. I joke around about it a lot, but I actually seriously do enjoy this, and I believe it is important for us to continue to learn together so that we can live our lives in a way that glorifies our Lord. We're going to go into a break. Do not touch that dial.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
915 Talk is listener supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. That's right. It's people just like you who make this program possible. Together with Desert Voice, you can learn how to better serve our neighbors and pray for our community. To become a Desert Voice Media partner, you can visit desertvoice.media. That's right. That's the website, desertvoice.media. Take a look and join us today in reaching our borderland for Christ.
Don't forget to download the KELP radio app on your smartphone now for free by going to your app store and searching KELP Radio.
915.
Testify.
I want to give God all the honor, all the glory, all the praise. There was a time in my life that I was lost in drugs, using and selling, living a sinfully life for 24 years of my life. I was empty, full of hate, anger, bitterness, selfish lies, and perversion. God saved me by His grace. I'm no longer empty. I'm no longer lost. He changed my mind, my heart, and my behavior. I'm no longer slave of anything. Today I know that there's power in the name of Jesus. Today I know that there's purpose. Today I know that I'm fearfully and wonderfully created to make impact through Him, to speak truth, to serve, to give, to love, to forgive, to be kind, to have accountability, to preach by example, and to always know that the victory is His will be done. My name is Lev Davidovich. If God can do this for me, He can do it for you.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb
And by the word of their testimony.
desertvoice.media.
We're back. You're listening to 915 Talk.
We are back, and you are listening to 915 Talk. I'm your host, Andy Frecka. Today we're with attorney Jacob Barde. We've been talking about estate planning, succession planning with your business. Jacob, I have a hard-hitting question for you. Did you get Esquire after your name?
Yes.
Yeah, so that just happens when you become a lawyer?
It's automatic.
Like everyone?
Yeah, I mean, no one cares, but yeah.
I care.
Well, thank you.
I mean, if I had Esquire at the end of my name, I would put that everywhere.
You know, I didn't have it next to my name until very recently. Somebody put it on a nameplate for me, and I get a lot of questions about it. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, you used to be, I guess, general counsel of a big developer,
right?
Here in El Paso. What are you seeing with real estate law? What are some little tips you might have for folks as they're maybe putting their pinky toe into maybe some different transactions as far as that's concerned?
Sure. The first thing I would say is read your documents. You know, I worked for a mortgage company and a home builder, and for most people, buying a house is like the biggest transaction of their lives. And I was always surprised how few people read their documents. And I was always, I was pleased when somebody would read them and have questions. I mean, these multi-$100,000 transactions that you live with for 30 years in some cases.
Right.
Read the documents and ask questions.
Yeah, I love that. That's so simple. But I'm going to say this. I've been in the situation where you're in a room, there's lawyers there, and you're handed this big contract or all this papers, and everyone there has been working on this piece of paper, and they want you to sign it. And you feel like you're just really inconveniencing everyone by reading. And really, you should be reading it before you get into the meeting. But what you're saying is take the time to read it. It's the biggest transaction of your life, and it's actually great for you as an attorney to get some questions.
Absolutely. And say that beforehand. It is an inconvenience when you lead on that you're not going to look at anything, you're just going to sign, and you show up on time for your 20-minute closing and you want to spend 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if ahead of time you're like, hey, I intend to read every word.
Yeah.
And so send it to me now. Or plan ahead for that, please. They will.
Yeah. I think that's such a basic thing. Do you remember, but basic, but people forget. Can you remember where people later on were surprised because they hadn't paid attention?
All the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, all the time. One thing you see a lot with first-time home buyers is they think, well, I have my principal and my interest payment, and that's what I'm going to have to pay. And you also have to pay taxes, and you also have to pay for insurance. There might be other closing costs. There's usually cash to, like a down payment, cash to close. And I was often surprised at how people were shocked by that because the law requires that the lender and the seller give all kinds of disclosures. And so it's all in front of you, but a lot of folks don't read it.
Yeah, that's a huge difference in your monthly payment.
It is.
If you're not counting for insurance and not insurance, taxes, taxes, particularly in El Paso.
Yes, particularly in El Paso.
That's an enormous difference, and that would be very distressing, disappointing, and if you only found out about that when you got the bill the next month. All right. Any trends you see with building in El Paso?
Well, a lot of
coming kind of out of that world.
Yeah, a lot of buildings going on the edges of town. I think a lot of the builders are finding it easier to build in Socorro and Vinton, out in Clint. What used to be farmland 10 years ago is tons of houses coming in right now. A lot of industrial going in.
Right. And you left that world and now you started your own practice. What kind of led to that?
I felt called by God. I've been in recovery, been dealing with some mental health issues, anxiety and depression, and one of the steps towards recovery is you turn your life and your will over to the care of God. And as I was really kind of drilling down into what does that mean for me, one area of my life I had to think about was my profession and the gifts that God gave me. And when I really prayed and thought, where does God want me to put my energy in that regard, it was in private practice. And so from one day to the next, I resigned and I built my private practice about 8 weeks ago.
Wow. Yeah. So you came out of a very, I'm going to say safe situation, I would guess.
Yeah.
You were working for a large employer. What were the stress levels like? You said you were dealing with anxiety. What were the stress levels like for your family when you go from that safe situation to opening your own practice?
Initially, I think there was a lot of concern, my wife especially. I remember her first question is, well, how are we going to pay our bills? I'm like, well, God will provide.
Right.
She said, but what if God takes a few months to provide? Well, then we'll move into a smaller house.
Right.
I don't know. So I think there was a ton of faith, and thank God my wife was with me on that. But the kids, I think, were, I have twins are going off to college. Dad, are you still going to be able to help us, pay for college? And what's that going to mean for us?
Sure.
A lot of questions.
And how did you get your name out there so people would start calling?
Well, it was already out there. I was very active in the Builders Association. And I wasn't, many generals counsel hire out most of the legal work. In my case, I did most of the legal work in-house. And so I've been working with title companies and lenders and builders and, developers and utility providers and so on for years. And so my initial thing was a LinkedIn post. I was thinking, should I advertise on Google or Instagram or what? And decided LinkedIn was probably the best place for business to business. And, put a first post out there that I was doing this and got a ton of responses, a bunch of new clients. A bunch of folks called like, wow, I can hire you now.
That might be the biggest LinkedIn success story I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it blew me away. I did not expect it.
That's super cool. But it shows that you had a good reputation, good friendships, relationships. Also speaks to the importance of building relationship even when you're not thinking about starting your own practice.
Indeed, yes.
So you're seeing the result of that, the fruit of that. That's so cool. If you're just joining us again with Jacob Barde, he's now he has his own place. How can people find you?
jbarde at bardelaw.com.
Okay.
Or LinkedIn. I haven't had the need to start a website or build a big office just yet. I'm working out of home. Everything's coming in by referral, word of mouth, and LinkedIn.
Okay, so you have to say it more slowly. We're on the radio.
That makes sense.
J. Barde.
at bardelaw.com.
At bardelaw.com. And Barde is Barde.
That's right.
Yeah, jbarde at bardelaw.com. And again, we do have the phone lines open if anyone has any questions about particularly business succession or estate planning. 915-779-0016. It was funny, Kenny, on the board on Saturday we were doing the trading post.
Yes, we were.
And how many calls did we get?
We got a ton of calls. We were very busy. It was great.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I know there are more people listening to the radio now than there are on Saturday morning. And we don't get calls very often on 915 Talk. Yeah, so it's funny. But I'm going to do this more and more often. If people have questions for our guests, 915-779-0016.
Okay.
Today we're talking about estate planning and succession planning. We're going to create a new culture on 915 Talk where people can call in.
I think Charlie's going to be our first
caller.
Yeah,
yeah, we're about to get the traffic report here in a minute. But again, we're with Jacob Barde with Barde Law. Don't even have your own website. You harness the power of LinkedIn.
That's right.
I've never heard of that.
Me
neither. and so you're 8 weeks in. Where are you at compared to where you expected to be at this time? 8 weeks in.
Incredible. I mean, God has provided. I had a number in my mind. We have to make X by this date, or else we're going to have to borrow money or make some major decisions in our life. And I'm about 3 times more than what I thought I would be at.
Oh, wow.
It's really been incredible.
Wow.
Yeah,
Praise the Lord.
I mean, everything that's happened since I left is only confirmed for me.
Wow, that's super, super cool. Okay. All right, I think we have Charlie 1 on the phone. Charlie 1, what are you seeing out on the roads this afternoon? Charlie 1?
Andy, there's 2 separate tight spots I want to cover. It's kind of in the same area but different, but a lot of congestion on the far east side because I want to start with Loop 375 north to I-10 east to that I-10 exit. But as you're going up Loop 375 north and you want to take that I-10 exit, it's going to be very difficult here because they take away the right lane. The exit is closed, so you can't use that. And the backup goes back past North Loop almost to Alameda in the valley. Those Loop 375 northbound lanes really stacked up because we have this overturned semi, and it's just blocking that exit right there. It's blocking that area of Loop 375 north to I-10 exit. So a lot of congestion there. And not too far away from that one, maybe half a mile or a mile, I-10 west to Loop 375, we have a crash blocking the right lane. A lot of congestion here on those westbound lanes. So 2 spots right there on the far east side you really want to stay away from here, Randy.
Okay, Charlie 1, this afternoon we have Jacob Barde with us. He's a lawyer here in El Paso. He recently started his own practice and 8 weeks ago, and he was just sharing with us that there was a little bit of concern how it would go starting the business. And praise the Lord, he got triple the amount of clients that he expected. But if that hadn't happened, he could have got a bowl of poor man's soup. Where would you recommend that he find that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think it matters. I mean, if you're very successful, if you're not successful, you're really gonna enjoy that bowl of menudo because it's homemade menudo. Here, homegrown. I mean, I don't know if it's homegrown, but I mean, it's homemade here, and you're just going to really enjoy it. It's a poor man's soup, but it's also the rich man's soup. I mean, it's everybody enjoys it. I don't think it distinguishes. That menudo doesn't really distinguishes, how much money you make, because you're going to enjoy it either way. And you can pick it up. You can pick it up in containers, take it home, put it in the fridge, and then at your own leisure and time, you put it in the microwave and enjoy it. It's nice and spicy. It's put the oregano on it. You're going to love it. Menudo, Eastside Choice Meats. Over that in Treewood, Andy.
Thank you, Charlie 1. We'll talk soon.
You bet.
And we're back with Jacob Barde. He's a lawyer here in El Paso, has his own practice. He's especially working with families, I would say, in business succession, also estate planning. Jacob, at the beginning of this program, often will say about the guests, he's a true son of the borderland. You're not originally from El Paso. It sounded like you moved around a lot when you were young.
Yeah, I'm an adopted son of the borderland now. Yeah, I was born in the Northwest in Portland, Oregon. I've lived all over the country as a kid. I was in Arizona, Florida, California, upstate New York. Ended up in Austin for my senior year of high school. That's where I fell in love. I married my high school sweetheart. Her parents are from El Paso. And so when she went to Texas Tech after high school graduation, they moved back here in 2000. And so then I went with her out to Lubbock, enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2004. And when I separated in 2008, moved to El Paso and went to UTEP.
Okay, so what caused so much moving around?
It started with my parents' bankruptcy when I was about 3 years old in Oregon. My dad took a job as a local truck driver for a laundromat, like delivering walk-on mats and hospital linens and the like in Phoenix. And he was in that world. He had some, both my parents had some mental health issues and financial issues. It's difficult to recover from a bankruptcy, I think. It takes a long time before you can borrow money to buy a house, for example. So just moving around a whole lot, just chasing the dollar, trying to feed their family.
So they would just hear about some opportunity and jump on it.
I think there was some terminations. I think there was some of that. My dad trying to move up. Ultimately when, I was 16, 17, he got a great job for the first time. He moved to Austin, Texas. This is the summer of '99 before my senior year of high school. And that was like the first time he lived in a suburb, had a nice house, went to a good school.
Wow.
It was nice to be able to finish off my childhood that way.
Right. Okay. So there was a lot of financial stress, and also your parents were dealing with a lot of stress.
They were.
Yeah. And I think for folks who didn't grow up in that kind of situation, it's kind of hard to really even understand or quantify. But can you share just a little bit what that was like for you?
Sure. Something that was especially weird for me that may be hard for your audience to understand is I grew up Jewish.
Okay.
But I didn't know that I was Jewish until I was like in fourth grade. We had just moved to Syracuse, New York, and I think that my family was sufficiently affluent at that point that they wanted to be a part of the Jewish community. And
so like now we can let everyone know.
Say, hey, we're Jewish now. We're Jewish all along. I just didn't know it. And I had to go to Hebrew school.
Oh, wow.
And, I came from the
In
poor
the
side
fourth
of
grade.
town. Yeah. Getting ready for bar mitzvah. All my peers were pretty affluent compared to where we were at. So, they had been going to Hebrew school together and growing up together. And I wasn't a part of that world. So not only was it tough, coming from a poorer family, but also tough to be a part of that Jewish community for the first time, a new identity.
Okay. So your family's going through a lot of stress, and then you're in a situation where you're with a lot of people who aren't experiencing any of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So speak into that.
Yeah, so I remember going to Hebrew school, and these kids all came from the day school, and I'm coming from the public school on the other side of the tracks, and they know all the Hebrew songs and when to stand up, when to sit down, and I didn't know any of those things. And
I just found out I'm Jewish.
Right, that's right.
Last week, give me a break.
But I was told that if I went through with it and got bar mitzvah, I would get some money in my bar mitzvah, so I was motivated.
All right, so you're in that world. Like, was it interesting for you? Did it bring an understanding of spiritual things?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that I developed a very powerful reverence for God and the idea of God and what that means for God to be real.
Okay.
But as you probably know, in Judaism, for Jews, they don't believe the veil has been torn.
Right.
There's not direct access to God. There's not a, as I experienced it at least, not a relationship with God. There's a relationship with the synagogue, maybe with the rabbi. So there wasn't that spiritual side that I now experience.
Okay. Yeah. So you're kind of going through the motions, hoping to make some money at bar mitzvah.
Yep.
Bouncing around the United States.
Yep.
And do you feel like you were? I don't really know how to ask the question, but your parents were experiencing stress. Were you just absorbing some of that?
I think I was. I had this motto until about 8 months ago, and I'll tell you why that time is significant. But it was nobody cares, work harder. That was the mentality of my family. That's the mentality in the Marine Corps. I had a ton of stress, and like my parents did too. But there was a sense of like life is hard for everybody. Who cares?
Okay, so that's what you're telling yourself is, hey, everyone is going through it. Just suck it up, move on.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And you're going through this. You're in Marines, college, all of that, and you thought you were living just a normal life like everyone else.
For the most part.
Okay, for the most part.
Yeah.
Any telltale signs?
You know what? I stopped trying in school in 6th grade, and so I only graduated because they gave me a diploma when I was a senior in Austin. And so when I went to UTEP, I hadn't really ever turned in a homework assignment or taken a test or written a paper. And I'm thinking, well, I hope that I can handle this. Like, I hope that I'm smart enough. And at UTEP, I got almost straight A's. I got 2 B's and all A's, had a 3.98 GPA. I just crushed it at UTEP. And I was a grown man. I had kids at home, living at my in-laws' house. But that's when I started to feel like, wow, I had all this potential all this time. I had no idea. And same thing in law school. I was just so grateful to be there, So I had a sense that something was different.
Right. Okay. So what I'm understanding is like through your school years, you're just getting by. You didn't care.
I really didn't. No, we had some pretty significant stuff that happened in the family around 5th or 6th grade. I remember showing up the first day of school, and I just did not care at all. I wasn't concerned with getting in trouble. Didn't worry about my grades. My parents were basically absent, so they didn't even know that I was, they kind of just push you through school at that point. Even though I was failing every class, I still got to go to the next grade every year. I mean, I took 9th grade English 4 times, 9th grade math 4 times. The only credits I got was from playing football, PE.
All right, so you end up at UTEP and find out you're a genius.
I wouldn't say that. I worked hard. I showed up on time, Did my job.
Then you went to law school. You did well. Yep. And then you said something happened about 8 months ago.
Yeah, so July last summer, I went to a rehab facility. I was drinking a lot. I was eating a lot. Was consuming cannabis. I was doing what I thought I needed to do just to get to sleep at night and keep myself feeling okay. And it got out of hand, and I thought I went to get on a diet and just get cleaned up and sober, and I'd come back and everything would be fine. And I found out as I was checking in, and a lot of folks that come in are suicidal or have serious drug issues, and so they put you in detox. And in the very beginning, there's an evaluation with the psychiatrist, and you've given blood and urine and saliva, and they've got you all hooked up to EKG and so on. And the psychiatrist is asking me, do you feel stressed out right now or anxious? I said, no, I feel normal. It's how I've always felt. And he said, well, let me tell you that if I wasn't sitting right across from you but I had the data that I have, I would think you were running for your life from, a cheetah or something right now. I mean, your resting heart rate is well above 120. You're having a panic attack right now. And I'm like, no, I've seen people have panic attacks. I'm not hyperventilating. I can talk to you. He's like, well, you're incredibly gritty. And I said, well, I feel like I'm pretty resilient. He's like, no, resilient means that you can feel emotions and incorporate them. What you are is just gritty. You're tough. But how long have you felt this way? Do you have a pain in your chest? I said, well, I've had a tight chest since I was about 9, but I've been to a cardiologist, and I think I'm healthy. He said, you're not healthy. Wow. And you're in the right place, and you probably wouldn't live another 10 years like this.
Wow. And so you were able to have a panic attack and basically control yourself to a point where you can live a life, be professional, you're high performing, and it would take a professional to even understand that you're going through that.
Yeah, I didn't believe him.
Even you didn't know that you were going through this.
Well, I've seen somebody have a panic attack, and I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And you said you've had this tightness in your chest since you were 9.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what?
Well, I spent the next 30 days, going to therapy every day. They put me on some medication, getting massages once a week, waking up by the sun, going to sleep when the sun went down, a lot of walking outside and meditation, yoga. And thank God, all of my therapists were strong Christians. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time talking about faith and how that was an essential part of the recovery process. In fact, the most important part. And I really grew my faith while I was there. I wasn't stressing out. I didn't have my phone the whole time. And I started to realize when I felt the contrast, just another quick story, about a week in, I thought that I had been drugged. I got this, they call it a craniosacral massage. It was the weirdest thing I ever felt in my life. I didn't get it. And I'm walking out and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. Somebody...
All right, hold on. What's that?
So my experience was I laid on a table and a woman had one hand underneath the back of my head, one underneath my sacrum, like my lower back. And that was it. I remember asking, what are we doing here? She's like, well, I'm getting your cerebrospinal fluid to flow a certain way. And I was like, whatever. Okay. I don't know. Thank you. I'm walking out 30 minutes later. I'm thinking I've been drugged. They would give you a little cup of pills and they told me it was just vitamins. And I rushed to the nurse's station and I said, I think somebody's giving me like an overdose of Valium or something. I feel like I'm floating. Something's wrong. And, they have like an on-site ER, mini ER, and the doctor comes and hook you up and they have you spit into, something. They check in your blood sugar, I guess, and you pee in a cup and all that. And the nurse comes out after a little while and holds me by the hand and kneels down and says, sweetheart, what you're feeling is called relaxed. You've not been drugged. And I couldn't believe it. And it was...
You just never remember feeling relaxed?
I've never felt that in my life that I could remember. And so the contrast of that initial...
You're an attorney, but I feel like we need to say at this point that nothing in this broadcast is in any way to be construed as medical advice.
Not at all. No, I appreciate the disclaimers. Yeah.
Not at all. Anyway, you go through this experience, you're going through therapy, and for the first time in your life, you feel relaxed.
Yeah.
So, what's that like for the first time? Like you said, you thought you were drugged.
I had to question everything. I mean, I was like, gosh, the first coming in, realizing how sick I was, and then on the back end, realizing how I could feel. And at the same time, growing my faith. relatively new Christian. I'm realizing everything I thought it was wrong. I mean, everything that the way I interacted with the world, using how you feel to understand what's going on around you and relating to other people and making human connections was all based on this misunderstanding of what I was going through. And that was huge for me. It was transformative.
Okay. And somewhere in your story, you met Christ.
Well, I had before met Christ.
Yeah.
It was actually about 3 years ago. I was 40 years old. A good buddy of mine who's been on your show encouraged me to repent and pray, and I thought, well, I don't want to fake it till I make it. He said, well, you should anyway. Nothing happens and go on being Jewish or something, but give it a shot. And I did, and I had a profound experience. I had a dream. I had a whisper that I needed to read Joshua chapter 2, which, as I woke up and reflected on my dream and read that chapter, Rahab and the spies, I realized that I couldn't explain any of what had happened to me without reference to God intervening in my life and answering my prayer. And I got baptized on Easter that year. And but even thereafter, I was still drinking, smoking, overeating, was living a sinful life, not realizing that was a sinful life.
Okay, so our mutual friend tells you need to repent.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit amusing because he's the kind of guy who would just tell you straight up.
Yeah.
Good guy. And so you have this dream, and then, Joshua 2, Rahab and the spies.
Yep.
I've never heard of that being part of someone's conversion experience.
You're not the first person to tell me that.
Yeah. So tell me again, what's the connection?
Sure. A lot of connections, actually. So when I first moved to El Paso, put my twins in the Jewish school, they asked me, what are your boys' Hebrew names? And I thought, well, I never did that. And so I asked a local mentor, a friend, I said, hey, I need to name my boys. And he said, well, we're in Numbers right now, because Jews read the Bible on a schedule. And we're talking about the story where Moses sends 12 spies, 2 of whom are Caleb and Yehoshua, Caleb and Joshua. And 10 of the 12 come back and say, we're all going to die. We can't go.
Right.
And 2 come back and say, well, that may be, but God told us to go, so we got to go.
Sure.
And my sons' names are James and Clayton, and Yehoshua and Caleb just seemed right.
Sure.
So they're Joshua and Caleb, and the book of Joshua that's the same Joshua. And of course, as you probably know, only 2 Jews of the original that left Egypt entered into the Promised Land, and that was Joshua and Caleb.
Right.
I'm reading about Rahab and the spies, and Rahab is not a Jew, and she's of the lineage of Jesus Christ. I come to figure out later as I was researching this. And it was like my kids led me to faith. It was the last battle of the Jews before entering the Promised Land in Jericho.
Oh, wow.
And as a Jew, I'm thinking, is this my last battle
wow.
before I become a believer and before I'm saved? I can go on and on. It was like everything I read. I spent the whole day looking up, like, if I could find any sermons on Joshua 2 and any kind of commentary, and everything I read just continued.
Wow. So you saw Jesus through Joshua chapter 2, the story of Rahab and the spies, through your sons having similar names to Joshua and Caleb. That's beautiful. You're giving your life to the Lord, but you still have all these things hanging on to you.
Right.
So you're talking 2 years of living like that.
Right.
And what was the struggle there, or did it just seem normal to you?
Well, it was like, I still had this Jewish mentality. I remember after I had the dream, I called my buddy and I was like, hey, so I did it. So what now? Do I have to get converted or something? Or is there a class I go to at the church? And he was like, no, I think you did it. I'm like, so now I'm just Christian forever? So that's it? He's like, well, I don't know, man. Read the Bible, pray. I'm like, well, what part? All of it? Maybe go talk to the pastor. I don't know. I did my job, And so I did. I started reading the Bible, but I still had this mentality of it's something that I have to do. I have to jump through these hoops or overcome these issues or have these realizations. I didn't quite realize that it was entirely up to God, and I just didn't get that.
Right. What would you say to someone right now who's maybe driving down I-10, flipping through stations, and they're maybe in a similar situation where they're held on to by different addictions, whatever the case may be. They're overwhelmed by anxiety. They're wanting to come to the Lord. They know there's something more in life. What would you say to them?
Give it to God. I have a sponsor, and that's what he always says to me. I said, well, Mike, I don't know how to handle it. He said, well, pray about it. well, I don't know how to pray, but we'll pray about that. And I said, well, I just feel like I'm too smart sometimes, and I found some other things that help me deal with that stuff. He's like, well, God can take that away from you. And I said, well, I don't want him to take away my intellect. And he was like, well, that's your problem. He's like, you want things that God might not want. So stop that.
Right.
Stop making it complicated. Just give it to God. My mantra is thy will be done. I just say that over and over again in my head, and I have for months now.
Right. Okay, so the picture you're painting is someone who's seeking after the Lord, trying to figure it out. You didn't understand everything first day. You're studying deeply. You still have the issue of anxiety. You still have all these issues going on, and you're in what sounds to be an incredibly fast-paced work environment where you're performing very well. I think there are a lot of people like that who can put up a front, and then you go to rehab, where you find out for the first time that what it means to relax. Do you think that that's what had to happen before you could leave that work environment and start your own practice?
I do feel that way, but I also feel like God can have it any way he wants.
Right.
And so maybe that was the path that he has for me. I'm not sure if I had to do that. At this point, with what I understand and feel like I understand and know now, looking back on that, I feel like if I had just given it all to God at that point in my life, I didn't need to go through rehab and all that.
Right.
I'm not sure what I got out of that other than, relaxing, taking a month vacation, waking up by the sunlight every day and not looking at my phone for a month.
Right. Well, I mean, it sounds like you were giving up control for a month, right?
That's for sure.
Yeah. Giving up your phone, if nothing else, is giving up control.
Sure.
You don't know what's going on in the universe for 30 days. That's pretty scary. Some people are afraid to put down the phone for more than just a few minutes.
Well, for what I put my family through and my employer leaving for a month, I felt like I have to make the most of this experience. I have to be honest all the time. And that was terrifying. And because a big part of living with anxiety and hiding it is you're hiding really what's going on inside of you all the time for everybody around you.
Yeah.
And you become pretty sophisticated at doing that the longer you do it.
Right. Well, you've definitely moved past that. As soon as you came into the studio today, you put it on the table. Like, I want to talk about this. You're not looking to put on any more fronts.
Right.
That's truly amazing, and I think it can be a challenge to a lot of people who've been in church for many years, who are maybe hiding addictions or whatever they're going through. So, what a great challenge you're living out today. So, I appreciate that. You went through that process of learning to relax, overcoming anxiety. I assume it's still a process.
Sure.
So what's that look like today, 8 months later?
It's kind of like I was teaching my kids how to drive, and the first time they got on the highway, my son's like, "Dad, I'm really scared." I'm like, "You better be." This is for real.
Right.
And I remember telling him the only difference between a seasoned driver, and you is not the fear that you feel, but how you feel about the fear that you feel. And so I still have the anxiety, but, at first I didn't realize I had it. And then when I did realize I had it, it really bothered the heck out of me. I thought, this isn't good for me. This is raising my blood pressure, my heart rate. It's not healthy. And now I'm like, well, if I have anxiety, then I have anxiety. At the end of the day, all I can do is give it to God. My best case scenario is to be useful to God and his plan. And if that means I need to deal with some anxiety, then so be it. This is for real. I mean, I'm doing this once.
Yeah, it's happening. And okay. Yeah, I love that. Again, for those who missed the first part of our program, we're today with Jacob Barde. He's an attorney here in El Paso. He worked for a large developer for many years. He started his private practice 8 weeks ago, and he was sharing that God has really blessed that Lord spoke to you to do it, and you're experiencing the blessing of the Lord 3 times the amount of, I guess, clients that you expected. But at the beginning of the program, we were talking about how you work in business succession planning, estate planning. In the few minutes that we have left, could you kind of rehash some of those things for those who missed the first part of the program?
Sure. So I'll give you the full picture. So
Sure.
I do a lot of business succession planning. So a lot of small and family-owned businesses that need to think about what's going to happen when I become incapacitated or pass on. Who's going to run my business, not just who's going to get my stuff. Of course, the basic estate planning, will and trust-based estate plans and incapacity documents, powers of attorney, guardianship for your minor children. I do a lot of work for lenders, so I draft loan documents. business transactions, real estate transactions, everything contract is really where I draw the line. I don't go to court. I don't sue people. I don't defend lawsuits. I do think that I have a lot of talent in avoiding those things from happening. So what I would call pre-litigation dispute resolution. But don't call me if you want to sue somebody.
Right.
I'm not your guy.
Okay. Very cool. And El Paso is now your adopted city.
It is.
If you could pray one prayer for El Paso, what would that prayer be?
I would pray that we all get closer to God. I think that from my perspective, you're either growing closer or further away. And I hope that our city comes together and grows close to God.
And you've been very transparent in this conversation about how your life changed as you drew closer to God. If we as a community all did that, how would El Paso look different?
I think that we can look at each other with love. However we feel about whatever's going on, at the end of the day, when I can look at another human as a child of God, that may or may not be on God's path, but probably wants to be either way. It's not for me to judge. It's for me to be a part of God's plan. And I think that we can look at each other with love. I mean, it's just easier to get along in the world. It doesn't bother me so much when I can't drive 70 on the freeway,
Right. And it seems to me like you're an analytical kind of guy. You enjoy studying. Even talking about your story of Joshua 2 and following all these different directions out of that story. Is there anything in particular you're studying right now in the scripture?
I'm just going through it. I found a 5-day-a-week for the year guide, and I love it because it takes a small part of the Old Testament and then a small part of Psalms and then something from the New Testament. So right now I'm towards the end of Joshua, read Psalm 15 this morning, and I'm in Luke. And one thing that I think a lot about, especially as I read the gospel, is the parables. I was a philosophy student. I love squeezing as much nectar as I can out of a parable, out of a story. And I was reading this morning about it was the line was those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted.
Right.
And as somebody with a high IQ that did so well in school, seemingly on my own fuel, and seemingly without God, is what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to get a really big head, and it's easy for me to glorify myself and to rely on myself, and that seems to me to be the source of almost all of my anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And so, for me, as I read the scripture, I try to, see myself for, at best, useful to God, and really just nothing more than a sinner saved by the grace of God, and that humbles me, and that's what I'm trying to focus on right now as I study.
Yeah, love it. Jacob, thank you so much for coming in today. Truly enjoyed this conversation. Glad that I was finally able to get you to come in. And to folks out there, get your business succession plan in place, get your estate plan in place. Let's steward the resources God has given us. Thank you for being so transparent, and also for all the work you do, helping folks steward the assets that they've been blessed with.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Yeah. As we always say, let's learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory.
Amen.
This has been 915 Talk.
You have been listening to 915 Talk, a production of Desert Voice Media. To listen to this or any previous edition of 915 Talk, just visit desertvoice.media and click on the 915 Talk link. Let's continue to learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory.